Hi everybody, this is Matthew Poes with Poes Acoustics, and in this video, I am answering a question from the Polyester Pimp. I like your name. You gave me $24.99 donation, which is a very generous one. I appreciate that. And you wrote, I actually am realizing now that this paper may have been mixed up with another one, and so I may have another video that partially gets at this. So you said, oh no, my system is in a 16 by 14 by 8 foot living room with no room treatments, couch against the wall, non-negotiable, and somehow my pretty good bookshelf speakers, the KEF R3s, can output to my perception better room-filling bass than my ancient 12-inch JBL PB12 that I got for free. With only this comment as a reference, do you think a second PB12 would be more appropriate to put on the opposite wall? Room treatment is in the cards, but it's a matter of time. Or should I just eliminate the subwoofer? Or would a pair more modern subwoofers cut the proverbial mustard? I promise I'm not being a knucklehead. I'm genuinely interested, and I enjoy the videos you produce. Cheers from St. Louis, Missouri. All right, Polyester Pimp. So first off, for those that don't know, that KEF R3 bookshelf has really good bass. I was shocked. I got them from my brother. He had some speakers he and I built. They were like a DIY design. Walnut veneered, really pretty, and they were blown. I don't remember what was wrong. I think the tweeter blew, and they don't make that tweeter anymore. And rather than trying to fix it and just spending a bunch of time, we decided, get you something new, maybe not DIY, so it's got a warranty and is a really good product. And the KEF R3s are a stupendous value. They sound really, really good for the money. They're very well made. They look and feel much more luxurious than I think other products at the same price point, which I really like. So good speaker. And so the thing that caught me when I got my brother's system all together was just how much bass they had. Now, he was using them in a tiny little office area that was the size of a small bedroom. So I'll just mention for him, at least, it was good bass in a tiny room, but it was good bass. Like I could see not needing a subwoofer. Now, having said that, there is no way that those woofers are going to have more output than a good 12-inch woofer is. However, keep in mind that two 8-inch woofers does have pretty similar displacement to a 12-inch woofer. And I know nothing about that JBL subwoofer, but if it has a weak amplifier, low X-Max, it is possible that the bass output from those KEFs is actually, I forget the size of the woofers in the KEFs, but they may be big enough that with more X-Max and a properly tuned port and everything, that they are giving similar or more output, maybe. But I think a more likely thing is that a lot of people find that their full range speakers or even their ported bookshelf speakers with good bass seem to have better sounding bass than when they add a subwoofer. And what they're experiencing is not a problem necessarily with the subwoofer. It's a problem with the integration. When the subwoofer is in a bad location, it can have a pretty lousy response. When it's poorly integrated with the mains, it can end up making the bass worse, not better. And so the only way to know that, I mean, some people have a good ear, they can figure it out. But the only way to really easily know that is to take measurements with something like REW. And that's what I would recommend, is to use a tool like REW, take some measurements, and try to figure out what's going on with the bass. Because my guess is that there's something wrong with the integration of the bass. Now, would a second PB12 improve things? Probably. Would more modern subs improve things? Yes, maybe. I mean, there have been some subwoofers from that generation that are probably still relevant and good today, but I don't know that that was a very good subwoofer. I really don't know. It's hard for me to say. It also could be blown. I mean, that's always a distinct possibility. You know, as you pointed out, the only thing I have is your comment, so I don't know what's wrong with it. I have actually found situations where people were saying that they wanted my help. I had somebody pay me quite a bit of money, because my calibrations are not cheap, to do a calibration for him. And when I got in there, his subwoofers, which were older, but they were from a high-end company that made like THX-rated speakers, and they should have had really good output, but when I got in there, I was noticing they sounded quite lousy, and then I started to investigate. I pulled the grills off the subwoofers, which was hard to do. They were not really meant to come off, but we had to look at what was wrong. And I noticed that the cones looked pretty degraded. So I touched the surround, and it actually didn't, there were no holes in the surround that I could see, but it didn't look good. And when I touched it, it instantly disintegrated. And I realized that while it looked okay, it had actually fallen apart probably many, many years ago. So we had a choice. We could fix the cones on those subwoofers and then get them working back like new again and then do the calibration. But that, I mean, we would have had to have ordered a kit and everything. It would have taken a while. Or we could toss those because they were really old and probably garbage. And we could buy new subwoofers. And I talked to the client and I said, look, my honest opinion, you could better these with a smaller modern sub that has more excursion and a more powerful amplifier. I think if we get these up to working spec, they're so old. I mean, they were 30 years old, 25 years old, something like that, that I just didn't think they were going to be up to spec. So sure enough, we replaced them with actually a pair of smaller subwoofers with higher excursion, and everything is good. And we got it all tuned up and it worked really good. But older subs, more than 10 or 15 years old, depending on the materials used, can degrade and fall apart. And they can look okay and actually not be performing okay. The other thing I saw once was a subwoofer that the spider had actually had some issues, and that was not obvious until we pulled the driver out. So it wasn't behaving normally. The distortion was really high. Everything looked okay, and then we pulled it out and realized that the spider had started to degrade. And this was a pretty old spider. So I think that they should be better now, the modern materials. In general, modern subwoofers are going to last longer than the old ones did. Anyway, I don't have a great answer for you, Polyester Pimp, but I think probably if you're happy without the subs, just use it without subs. But I do think you can get better performance with subs. You can extend the bass a solid octave or two. I mean, what I would do, depending on your room and use case, I'm trying to think here. I don't know how your room is oriented. I probably would use I think it's the KC92s. It's the CAF subwoofer. It's got two 9-inch drivers. They side fire. That's a pretty good subwoofer. It matches that speaker pretty well. It's got really good extended deep bass. I think they claim it's like 10 hertz or something crazy like that. As crazy as that is, it actually does technically do that. They're not lying. It is limited in output, obviously, but for its size, it is a good subwoofer. So it does two things I really like for its size. One is that the limiters are really well set. And so it's a sealed dual 9-inch driver, which is roughly the output of like a 13 to 14-inch woofer. And it gives you that output, but when it hits its limits, it just hits its limits. Like it doesn't like fall apart and distort really bad. It just gets up there and kind of pulls things back, and then that's it. It doesn't get any louder. So with normal use, you won't hear it distorting or overloading or anything. It'll perform fine. It compresses, which is by design, so it's not going to produce 10 hertz at really, really high SPL, but it will produce that bass. And so unlike some of the cheaper competition that I've seen out there in that kind of micro sub category, which use high-pass filters for protection as well as limiters, this one doesn't really use a high-pass filter. And so you actually do get good deep bass out of the subwoofer in typical rooms. So we've done a bunch of systems with them where I was very impressed with the sound quality. You know, would I use these? I heard them in London where they used a ton of them. I forget the number now, like 8 or something like that, as the subwoofers for like a really, really high performance theater. And on one hand, it was impressive given what it was, how much bass they were getting. On the other hand, having heard plenty of rooms that size loaded up with 18s, it wasn't the most impressive experience. They called it the ultimate home theater, and it's like, it's a very good theater. It was well done. It had some calibration issues that I would have liked to have seen better, but it was not ultimate in the sense that in the really high-end stuff like that we do, other types of systems that I do at least are so much more extreme than what they did that the bass is like way beyond what they were doing. But I'll just say, as much as people like to tease those little subs as being inadequate, they're actually really good, and they're really good for the money and size. Yes, you can get, for the money, you can get better subs, but for the size and money, you really can't. And the fit and finish is great. Anyway, that would be one of my recommendations if you can get away with it. So I hope this video was helpful for you, Polyester Pimp, and for everybody else. I appreciate all the questions. Like and subscribe to these videos. Keep the donations coming when you can. I appreciate all that. I got more coming. Thank you.